Perfect.
All right, everybody, what's going on? And welcome to today's edition of SWAC Talk. This is the show we cover the SWAC inside and out. I'm your tour guide around the SWAC. See what else coming at you. And man, it's been a crazy day. But now we're gonna have our Week 12 preview. So we got a little bit of extra coaching news to throw in here. I'll throw it in when I cover that game. So let's go ahead and get into it, man. Y'all hit those socials: Facebook is SWAC Talk, Instagram SWAC Talk, Twitter SWAC Talk 76. You can check out those socials and get anything that I drop. You know, sometimes I have my weekly schedule on there. Sometimes I throw a little random post on there about anything going on. So y'all make sure y'all rock with the socials. Hit that subscribe button. We over 1,100 subscribers and we're growing rapidly. So I'd like to thank y'all for rocking with us. Everybody who's subscribed lately, thank you for subscribing and continue to hit that button, man, as we move on. Like the video, share it. Feel free to comment your thoughts on Week 12. And also, you know, you can hit that join button to become a member of the channel, or you get that super thanks button to show a little love to the show that way. Or if you would like to do it the other way, you can hit the Cash App $SWAG Talk. Anything would be appreciated. So let's go ahead and get into this, man. It's been a crazy week. Week 12. SWAC West is still undecided. It can still be, it can still go 100 different ways by the end of Saturday. So we're going to go ahead and start off with Thursday's game. We do have another Thursday game, and we actually have a Thursday game next week as well. But this is Mississippi Valley heading to Alabama A&M to take on the Bulldogs. Thursday night action. So A&M coming in. They're coming in on a losing streak. Valley's coming in obviously on a losing streak. They both really had a rough go of it these last few weeks, especially for the Bulldogs. They dropped a big game. They dropped a big game to Bethune-Cookman last week, man, which was definitely a surprise. But Bulldogs, you know, we'll see where they go. But let's start off with the Delta Devils. Their season has been it's been a really rough season. They're 1-9, 1-6 in conference. The offense averages 11 points a game. Defensively, they're giving up 26, which is not that bad when you consider that this team doesn't move the ball much. The defense has done decently well this season. The offense runs the ball for 94 yards per game. They average 2.6 yards per carry. The defense gives up 162 yards on the ground, 5.2 yards per carry. Through the air, the Delta Devils average 153 yards per game. They have 6 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. Defensively, they give up 214 yards per game, 19 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, 247 yards of offense per game for the Delta Devils, 3.8 yards per play. The defense allows 376 per game and 6.2 yards per play. Delta Devils average 30 yards per punt. Excuse me, they average they average 34 yards per punt. The opponent's 35. Valley converts 26% on third down and 52% on fourth down. The opponent's 34% on third down, which is not that bad. That's a pretty solid number for a defense. To say that they're on the field a lot, they do manage to get off of the field quite often, and they only allow 35% fourth down conversion. So this defense, honestly, is not a bad defense. The offense is just what makes this team look as it does. They get worn down. The defense gets worn down, and the points start to kind of build up by the opponents. But Valley has turned the ball over 21 times on the season. The defense has taken the ball away 12 times, so they're -9 in the turnover margin, which is never good. The defense has 10 sacks. They've given up 41 sacks as an offense, and they play multiple quarterbacks. And, you know, this is a new offensive line, and they do have some talent on the O-line, but They just haven't been able to protect the quarterbacks at all this season. They're 13 or 21 in the red zone. The opponent's 33 or 44. So they're not even getting into the red zone that often. Last week, they didn't even get into the red zone at all against Alabama State. So this offense just has not been able to get it done. Jared Wilson is the leading rusher. He has 392 yards on the ground this season, 3.3 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns. The Fabian Fant is their big play guy. He averages 7.9 yards per carry with 2 touchdowns and 275 yards on the season. Jacoby Thomas, 165 yards, 4.7 yards per carry, and no touchdowns. The passing game has been led by Tajarian Williams. He's 113 or 181, 974 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. Jaden Sisk, 17 or 26, 227 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Dino Maldonado also has 23 completions, 44 attempts, 141 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. When they do go to the air, Jackson Davis is their leading receiver. He has 33 catches for 323 yards and 2 touchdowns. Carrick Ross, 29 catches, 241 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And Kobe Bates has 24 catches, 231 yards on the season. Also, Malik Antoine has 17 catches for 181 yards. Kobe Chambers, 14 for 125 and a touchdown. And Rashad Eades has 10 catches for 120 yards. Along with Malik Myers with 12 catches for 99 yards. So they have they have 7 guys with double-digit catches. So they spread the ball around. They just haven't really been able to hit a lot of big plays on the season, and they haven't been able to consistently move the football. Jaron Fox is the leading tackler. He has 70 tackles on the season. He also has 9 tackles for loss, which also leads the team. And he has 2 sacks, which is second on the team behind Ryan Quinney with 2.5. The leading interceptor is Omar Emons with 2. Special teams wise, they are like I said, Alexander Davis averages 35.6 yards per punt. They've used 2 kickers this season, with 3 kickers actually, and they're 5 of 13 on the season combined with a longer 44. And they've had 2 kicks blocked. They've also had 2 punts blocked. So the special teams has been up and down just like the rest of the team. The return game hasn't really gotten off. Their longest punt return on the season is 11 yards, and their longest kickoff return is 48 yards 60 yards by Kobe Chambers. They face an Alabama A&M team that's coming in, like I said, they're on a 3-game losing streak. They're 4-6, 2-5 in conference, coming off of a bad loss. I mean, I don't even know how you can spin it any other way. They're coming off of a bad loss to Bethune-Cookman on Saturday. So this is an A&M team that's been that's been pretty inconsistent this season, offensively especially. They're a team that can they can put the points up, or they can not put up any points. They've just kind of had a really rough go of it this season, being consistent. On the average 29 points per game. Now that's buoyed by a couple of 50-point games against D2 teams, but they do put up points. They're giving up 28 points, which defensively is not that bad compared to where they were in previous years. The defense has gotten a lot better this season. They average 142 yards rushing on the season, 4.1 yards per carry, which for a team with 2 solid running backs and a running quarterback, those numbers aren't that great. They give up 151 yards on the ground, 4.1 yards per carry. They have 18 passing touchdowns and 11 interceptions, 226 yards per game. The opponents 202 through the air per game. They have 14 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, 368 yards of total offense for the Bulldogs. They average 5.4 yards per play. The opponents 354 per game, and they average 5.5 yards per play. So as you can see, it's pretty even on both sides. Bulldogs average 31 yards. They average 40 yards per punt, and the opponents 37 yards per punt. Bulldogs are 39% on 3rd down and 37% on 4th down. So keeping drives going has been a problem for this team. And when you look at a lot of these teams, if they're struggling, that's really where they struggle at, converting on 3rd downs and turnovers. Those two factors will always hurt a lot of these teams. The Bulldogs' opponents only convert 36% on 3rd down and 25% on 4th down. So this is a battle of 2 teams that defensively have been really good at getting off the field, and both teams have been not as good offensively as staying on the field. So whoever can extend drives and maintain drives is going to win this game. Um, Bulldogs have 11 fumbles to go with their 11 interceptions, giving them 22 turnovers. They have 10 interceptions and 10 interceptions and 11 fumbles recovered, giving them 21 takeaways, making them a -1 on the season. They have 19 sacks as a defense, and they've given up 19 sacks. So they have done a pretty decent job of protecting the quarterback, and they did an okay job of getting at the quarterback. They are 32 of 40 in the red zone. The opponents are 31 of 42. Again, numbers are pretty similar on both sides. They're led by Donovan Eaglin on the ground. He has 558 yards rushing on the season, 4.9 yards per carry, and 5 touchdowns. Ryan Morrow, 425 yards on the season, 4.9 yards per carry, and 6 touchdowns. Xavier Langford has 294 yards rushing, 5.3 yards per carry, and 6 touchdowns on the season. So, like I said, they have a three-headed monster in the run game. The problem has been consistency at the quarterback position. Quincy Casey's had a pretty solid season passing the ball. His numbers are 103 of 175, 1,320 yards, 10 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Langford, 904 yards through the air, 81 completions, 144 attempts, 8 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. So as you can see, they both have turned the ball over a decent amount. But Casey's he's the better passer, and the offense kind of plays differently when each guy is in there. And they both had multiple starts this season, so it's kind of up to whoever's playing how this offense is going to go. Cameron Young has 48 catches on the season, 479 yards and 4 touchdowns. Jacoby Hewitt, 28 catches, 401 yards and 4 touchdowns. Keenan Hambrick, 24 catches, 377 yards and 2 touchdowns. Terrell Gardner, 29 catches, 374 yards and 3 touchdowns. Also, LeVar Gums has 16 catches, 155 yards, and 1 touchdown. So they, like Valley, they have, 5 guys with double-digit catches. 4 of those have more than 20 catches. So they spread the ball around pretty well. But Young is the guy that they go to most often. They can stretch the field on you from time at times, but they really like to run the ball more than anything. Jordan Mitchell has 65 tackles to lead the defense. Zarian Hayes has 10.5 tackles for loss, and Jordan Mitchell leads the defense with 4 sacks. Caleb Dawson and Imari Pate both have 3 interceptions to lead the defense. Austin McCready averages 44 yards per punt on the season. They've had 3 punts blocked, so that's something. In most games, that's something I would tell you to really look out for. But Valley hasn't really gotten a block this season, but it can happen in a game like this. So they've had 4 kicks blocked in total, 3 punts and 1 field goal. They've blocked two kicks this season, 1 punt and 1 field goal. So that bodes well for them. Valley's had two punts blocked this season, and a couple field goals blocked. They're 5 of 8 on field goals with a longer 29. Again, they don't kick field goals often outside of 30 yards. So if they're in that 30 to 45 yard range, they're probably going to go for it. They've only kicked 3 field goals. They've only kicked 3 field goals longer than 30 yards on the season. They've made none. So they're a team who, if they're in that range, they'll probably go for it. They get closer than that, then they'll kick the field goal. Terrell Gardner has been really solid for them on returns. He averages 15 yards per punt return with a touchdown, and he averages 22 yards per kickoff return with a longer 57. So both teams have guys who are capable in the return game. But A&M definitely, if I had to say, somebody needs this game, it would be A&M more than anything. Valley, they are where they are right now. A win would definitely help them go out, with a solid effort. You definitely want to, you want to go out with a win, especially playing the way you've been playing. Your offense has been playing great. The defense has been playing admirable. But A&M, I think, really needs this win. They were a team who was battling for that second spot. Coming into the Magic City Classic, they actually had like an outside shot at going to the SWAC championship. They needed a lot of chaos, but they had an outside shot. and they've lost all game. They've lost all 3 games in that window, and now they're sitting at 2-5, tied with Bethune-Cookman for 4th place. So they really need this win to kind of maybe quell some of those hot seat rumors. I don't know where Coach Manor sits on that hot seat, but right now, he's the guy with the hottest seat in the conference. So where do they go from here? They need this win. I think they win this game. I think Valley's gonna make it tough. I think this game is gonna be 31-9. The score doesn't sound like it's gonna be that close, but I think Valley's gonna put up a decent fight. I know Coach Wade said, guys are kind of got caught up in living in the we played hard hard mode, and that's okay with them. But he knows they need to pick up a dub, and they beat this team last season under Coach Dancy, so it's not impossible for them to win this game. But I think on the road, the Bulldogs pick up that victory. Our first Saturday game that we're going to talk about typically would be my game of the week, but Sunday's game kind of changed that and made another game a bit more important. This is still a very important game. Don't get me wrong. This is the Soul Bowl, Jackson State and Alcorn, 2:00 kickoff, ESPN Plus broadcast. Alcorn needs to win this game. Jackson State, they want to win this game because A, it's a rivalry, and B, it's the next game on your schedule, and you want to, you have an opportunity to finish 8-3 and 6-2 in conference, so you're sitting in a good spot. You're not gonna make the championship. You still kind of got some people still feel like JSU may have an outside chance at the playoffs with this win. So you definitely want to win it and see what happens. Alcorn needs this win to have any hope of going to the SWAC championship game. They need a win and a Prairie View loss to make that happen. So they have to take care of their business first. They're 6-4, 5-2 in conference. They average 21 points per game. They're giving up 22 points per game. They are rushing the ball for 146 yards per game, 4.5 yards per carry. The opponent's 135 yards per game, 4 yards per carry. This defense had a rough go of it against TSU. Ladarius Owens had a big game on the ground against them last week, but they've been pretty solid in conference play against the run. They're 207 yards passing per game, 12 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Defensively, 194 yards per game through the air, 11 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, 354 yards of offense, 5.7 yards per play. The opponent's 330 yards of offense, 5.4 yards per play. They average 35 yards per punt. The opponent's 39. Alcorn has 37% completion rate on 3rd down, 58 on 4th down. The opponent's 33% on 3rd down and 69% on 4th down. So they've been, the last few weeks, this offense has been a lot better. The numbers look kind of the way they were because they had a rough start to their season, and then last week they didn't really play very well on either side of the ball. They have 4 fumbles and 7 interceptions, giving them 11 turnovers. They have 14 interceptions and 8 fumbles, giving them 22 takeaways, making them a plus 11. This defense obviously is really good at getting takeaways. When they do, they win. More often than not. They don't get any takeaways, then you see kind of an effort like you saw last week. They just really couldn't get anything going. They have 29 sacks as a defense, which is very good. They do a really good job of using multiple guys to get to the quarterback. And the offensive line has protected the quarterback pretty well with 16 sacks allowed. They're 25 of 31 in the red zone. The opponents are 27 of 33 in the red zone. Individually, they're led by Jarvion Howard on the ground. He has 703 yards, 5.2 yards per carry, 6 touchdowns. Numbers are down from last season. This was a guy who I thought could be the offensive player of the year in preseason, but he hadn't really been able to get it going. Jacorian Sewell has 298 yards on the ground and 1 touchdown. He averages 5.7 yards per carry. Nico Duffy, 169 yards, 3.7 yards per carry and a touchdown. And Tyler Macon, 163 yards, 9.6 yards per carry and 1 touchdown. Aaron Allen is 178 of 280 passing, 12 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 2,040 yards. He has a strong case for first-team all-conference quarterback, probably up there with Musa and Miles Crawley most likely. So he's playing really well. I mean, last week, again, the whole team didn't really have a great game last week, but he's been really solid in that 5-game winning streak they had. So he's definitely key in this game. He has to play well for this Braves offense to play well. Montario Hunt, 35 catches, 545 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Malik Rogers, 24 catches, 394 yards, 2 touchdowns. Tavarius Griffin, 23 catches, 274 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Tavarius Adams, 16 catches, 198 yards. Akeem McNair, 21 catches, 196 yards. Javion Howard, 25 catches, 178 yards, and Nico Duffy, 13 catches, 91 yards on the season. Terrence Ellis leads the defense with 89 tackles. Malachi Bailey has been a force on that D-line. He has 15 and a half tackles for loss to lead the team and 9 sacks, also leads the team. Interceptions, McDaniel and Leachman each have 3 interceptions on the season. Special teams has been solid. Darrell Barn averages 36 yards per punt. And Kiani is 13 or 18 on field goals with a longer 42. He's been really solid in that 30 to 39 range with 88 of 9 on those kicks in that range. So if they get inside the 30 to 39 yard range in field goals, then he's definitely a guy who's going to knock down those kicks more often than not. The return game hasn't really been great on either end. They average 2.1 yards per punt return, and they average 16 yards per kickoff return. The longest return on the longest kick return is 43 yards. So they haven't really broken anything to any extent. And that sometimes that can be a difference in a big game. That hidden yardage can really be a difference maker in a game like this. So if it's any time for them to bust one, it's this week. Jackson State comes in off of a bye week. They're 7-3, as I said, 5-2 in conference. The offense is averaging 27 points per game, 23 allowed by the defense. They run for 158 yards per game, 4.3 yards per carry. Defensively, they allow 155 yards on the ground, 4.8 yards per carry. Through the air, 226 per game, 18 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. They've been really solid with taking care of the football, especially passing the ball. 13 touchdowns allowed as a defense, 16 interceptions. They allow 183 yards per game. They average 385 per game. Total offense, 5.5 yards per play. The opponent's 339 per game, 5.4 yards per play. They average 38 yards per punt. The opponent's 37. Jackson State is 38% on third down and 76% on fourth down. The opponent's 34% on third down, 57% on fourth down. They have nine fumbles, giving them 12 turnovers. The opponents have 5 fumbles lost to go with those 16 interceptions to get them 21 takeaways. That makes them +9 on the season. Again, these are 2 teams who are very good at taking the ball away. So who can protect the ball the best out of these 2 teams and who can sustain drives is definitely going to be the team that wins this game. JSU has 28 sacks, and they've allowed 26 on the season. So they've struggled protecting the quarterback this season, but they've done a good job of getting after the quarterback. Both teams have solid pass rushes, so that's definitely going to make this game interesting as well. 27-37 in the red zone for Jackson State, 25 or 35 for the opponents. Individually, they're led by Irv Mulligan on the ground with 668 yards on the season, 5.6 yards per carry and 5 touchdowns. Desmond Moultrie, 224 yards, 4.3 yards per carry and 3 touchdowns. Ahmad Miller, 216 on the season, 6.4 yards per carry and 1 touchdown. J.D. Martin, 174 yards, 6.7 yards per carry on the season. Jason Brown still leads the team, although he hasn't started the last few weeks. He's 125 or 196, 1,357 yards, 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Jacobian Morgan has started the last few games, going back to the Valley game. He's 72 or 107, 691 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 1 interception. So he's had a really good time running the ball and passing the ball the last few weeks. His rushing numbers are pretty solid. He has 134 yards on the ground and 6 touchdowns. So he's been a dual threat for JSU, and that kind of changes the way the offense is able to be played. It makes them a little bit more dangerous having to account for the quarterback running the ball. Fabian McCray has 35 catches for 475 yards and 2 touchdowns. Rico Powers, 25 catches, 385 yards and 2 touchdowns. Duke Miller, 27 catches, 241 yards. Kobe Paul, 16 catches, 224 yards on the season. DJ Stevens, 18 catches, 208 yards and 4 touchdowns. Also, Seven McGee, 19 catches, 136 yards and 4 touchdowns. Isaiah Spencer, 17 for 126 and a touchdown. And Hayden Hagler has 11 catches for 94 yards and 2 touchdowns. Defensively, they're led by Isaac Peppers with 63 tackles. Peppers also has 10.5 tackles for loss to lead the defense. And Antonio Doyle has 4 sacks to lead the defense. Peppers and Thompson and Martin each have 3.5 sacks as well. 3 interceptions go to Tim Stewart, and Jaheim Hazel also has 3 to lead this defense. And like I said, they pick the ball off if you put it up there. The special teams has been a mixed bag all season. Matt Noel averages 44 yards per punt. The kicking game has kind of been up and down, but Dylan Watson has been the guy lately. They're 9 or 13 as a team on field goals with a long of 46. The return game has been pretty good. McGee averages 13 yards per return on punts with a long of 25. Rico Powers has 18 yards per return on kick returns. Isaiah Spencer has 16 yards per return with a long of 45, which is the longest for the team. This game can go a multitude of ways. Like I said, this is a big game for both teams. If it wasn't for Prairie and Bama State, this would be my game of the week. But I went with that game mainly because Alcorn's coming in off of a loss. But this is going to be an emotional game. It's a rivalry. You know, both teams want to kind of spoil each other's season. JSU would love to end Alcorn's chances at a SWAC championship. The Braves have to rebound from last week, so it's going to be interesting to see how they come off of the game from last week. Can they put that behind them, and can they play? Can they play like they played in that winning streak that they had in previous weeks? That's going to be a key. This is going to be a good defensive game. Which offense can kind of find the big plays is going to be the team that wins. I like JSU because they're at home. I think this is going to be a tight game. I think it's going to be, I say JSU 27, Alcorn 20. I think it's going to be a really close game. I think both teams are going to lay it all out on the line, and we'll see what happens. But this game, again, is going to impact the SWAC West one way or the other. So I think the Braves, I don't know if they're going to be able to put that tough loss behind them. That was the worst possible time for a loss. Can they put that behind them? That's always going to be the question. Our next game is Pine Bluff at Texas Southern. First and foremost, Coach Clarence McKinney would not be retained by Texas Southern. His contract expires on December 15th, so this is effectively his last game. This was a team who had a lot of promise. Injuries really derailed this team, but they've been playing well the last few weeks, which kind of, even though they haven't won a lot of those games, they've been playing well, which is kind of bittersweet. But, there was a lot of rumblings that he would not be retained since his contract was running out. So they decided not to renew it. And, he'll be gone after the end of this season. So that kind of changes a little bit in this game, but it doesn't change a lot because Pine Bluff, I don't want to be rough, but I call them the get right game. TSU doesn't need to get right because they've been playing well the last few weeks. They finally got over the hump and got their victory. But they playing a team who hasn't really been able to move the ball and hasn't been able to stop anybody. Pine Bluff definitely going to have to, chalk this up to a year zero, and they're going to have to find a way to right the ship next season. They're 1-9 in conference, 1-9 overall, 0-7 in conference. They're staring a winless conference record right in the face. And that was something that I felt like could happen. I felt like the Valley game was their chance to get a win. I've said that all preseason, and I felt like if they didn't get it, they probably wouldn't get one. And that's what happened. Now, it's the SWAC. Anything can happen. We always got to say that, but I don't really see it this week. The Golden Lions average 13 points per game. They give up 33. They average 128 yards on the ground, 3.5 yards per carry. They give up 192 on the ground, 5.1 yards per carry. They have 150 yards passing per game, 10 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Defensively, 262 yards per game, 23 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. They've given up 278 yards. I mean, they average 278 yards per game of offense, 4.4 yards per play. The opponent's 455 per game, 6.9 yards per play. They average 38 yards per punt. The opponents average 40 yards per punt. Pine Bluff converts 26% on third down and 42% on fourth down. So driving the ball has definitely been their problem. They've hit some big plays here and now, but they just can't march down the field on you. If they have to, they're gonna either turn it over or they're just gonna end up punting. So they just haven't been successful. Defense gives up 43% on third down and only 8% on fourth down. Now that sounds bad for the opponents, but they haven't really had to go for it too often. They only have 12 attempts on fourth down. When you give up 43% on fourth down, you're probably not gonna end up with too many fourth down attempts anyway. So this is a defense that's really struggled in that aspect. The opponents have punted 46 times on the season, so they haven't really done a really good job of forcing teams to get a ball up. The Golden Lions have 18 sacks on the season. They've given up 37. Again, just like Valley, the O-line has done, a rough job of protecting the quarterback. They played multiple quarterbacks, so that always is a factor in that. They're 15 or 25 in the red zone. The opponent's 31 or 36. The Golden Lions are led on the ground by Jonas Davis with 350 yards and 1 touchdown. He averages 5 yards per carry. Johnny Williams has 227 yards on the season, 2 touchdowns, 4.4 yards per carry. BJ Curry, 205 on the ground, 5 yards per carry, 1 touchdown. Kirsten Rogers, 185 on the ground, 5.6 yards per carry, and 1 touchdown. Jalen Macon still leads the team in passing. He's 61 of 92 for 634 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Chancellor Edwards has been the starter of note lately. He's 53 of 95 with 4 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, 438 yards. And Makai Higgins is 38 of 80 for 387 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Kenji Lewis leads the team with 29 catches for 372 yards and 2 touchdowns. Lloyd, 18 for 198. Dawkins, 22 for 148. Ballard, 12 for 136 and 2 touchdowns. Cochran, 12 for 125 and 1 touchdown. Defensively, they're led by Rico Dozier with 118 tackles. He leads the league in tackles. Arnold has 7.5 tackles for loss. He also has 4 sacks to lead the defense. And Kyrie Williams leads the defense with 2 interceptions. Baker averages 38 yards per punt. Dean Saris is 2 of 8 on field goals. So they've really had a rough time scoring. They have a longer 25, and they just haven't been able to put anything on the board in any manner. They also have 1 kick blocked on the season. The return game, Fletcher averages 4 yards per return. The team averages 3. Lloyd averages 23 yards per kick return with a longer 34. Donald Johnson averages 25 yards per kick return with a longer 58. So they have been able to, break a few returns, but they just haven't been able to do anything with them. So it's tough for this team to get anything going because they haven't been able to score points in any manner, and that's rough. TSU, like I said, coming in, Coach McKinney's last game, they're 3-7, 2-5. This is a missed opportunity season. This was a season where they were either dark horse or the outright favorite to win the West by a lot of people. And the offense has been really good in recent weeks, especially the run game. They're scoring 25 points per game. They're giving up 32, although that number has been coming down in recent weeks. The defense has been playing a lot better toward the end of the season. They average 191 yards on the ground, 5.3 yards per carry. The defense allows 174 on the ground, 4 yards per carry. They have 185 yards passing per game, 15 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 204 yards for the opponents per game passing, 17 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. One big difference between this year's defense and last year's defense. Last year's defense led the league in interceptions. This season, they don't have that many, so they haven't really been able to turn opponents over, and that hurts a lot. 377 yards of offense per game for the Tigers, 6.1 yards per play. 378 per game for the opponents, 5.2 yards per play. The Tigers average 36 yards per punt. The opponents 41. 36% on third down conversion rate for the Tigers, 40% on fourth down. Consistency moving the ball has been rough. Even though they run the ball really well, sometimes they get in their own way and not be able to finish drives. The opponents convert 43% on third down and 66% on fourth down. Again, those numbers have kind of went down as the season has progressed. So this defense is kind of hamstrung by those early FBS numbers. They haven't really gotten blown out in a lot of games. So I mean, you look at the last three games, they had a 10-point loss to FAMU, a 6-point loss to Southern, and a 2-point loss to JSU. So they have been in all their games, and they have a 3-point loss to Prairie View. So they have been in a lot of those games. They just haven't really been able to seal a deal. Um, they are 23 or 30 in the red zone. The opponent's 39 or 44. They're led by Ladarius Owens on the ground, who I've been saying for the last few weeks should be the player of the year. I don't see any reason why he shouldn't be. He has 1,227 yards on the ground, averages 6.9 yards per carry with 8 touchdowns. But you can't forget about Ja'Cory Howard. He has 362 yards on the ground and 6 touchdowns. He averages 5.8 yards per carry. So they have a duo that can boom and bam you on the ground, thunder and lightning easily. Jace Wilson has filled in pretty admirably for Andrew Body. He has 126 of 220, 1,490 yards, 10 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Jaron Johnson has 37 catches for 405 yards and 4 touchdowns. Quay Davis, 34 catches, 384 yards, 1 touchdown. Trenton Leary had a big game against Alcorn last week. He's 20 catches, 331 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Blanton, 13 catches for 141 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jacob Williams leads this defense. He is a guy who you should definitely watch. He's definitely just a playmaker on defense. Guy I love to watch play. He has 96 tackles to lead the defense. 98 tackles to lead the defense. He leads all defense also with 18.5 tackles for loss and 8 sacks. You need to know where he's at all times on the field. Benjamin and Player each have 2 interceptions. Special teams, the Tigers average, like I said, 36 yards per punt. They're led by Patrick Helen. He has 37-yard average per punt. The kicking game has been okay. 9 of 16 on field goals with a long of 41. They really struggle from 40 to 49 yards. They're 2 of 6 in that range. The return game has been pretty solid. Ladarius Owens has been a big-time threat in the kick return game. He averages 22 yards per return with a long of 49. Trenton Leary averages 16 yards per kick return, per punt return with a longer 39. A.J. Bennett, 12 yards per return with a longer 33. So they have a really solid return game. I think they have a good opportunity to make something happen in a game like this. They won't get a lot of kickoffs because I don't think Pine Bluff's going to score a lot of points, but I think they'll have a lot of opportunity to return some punts and make some things happen that way. So I like the Tigers in this game over the Golden Lions. I think TSU wins this game by a score of 45-10. Pine Bluff rough season is finally coming to a close. They can kind of look back and regroup and get ready for next year. I think Coach Hampton has an opportunity if guys buy in and they can continue to bring in guys. So rough first year. Like I said, I think it's a year zero, but I think Coach McKinney goes out on a high note. Our next game is the Florida Classic. That is a 2:30 kickoff. It still says ESPN Network. I'm not sure where it's going to be broadcast, but you can watch it on ESPN. The Wildcats come in. They've been playing pretty decently in recent weeks, and they had a big win over Alabama A&M on Saturday. The run game exploded for over 400 yards in that game. They're 3-7, 2-5 in conference. They average 19 points per game. They give up 26. They average 125 yards per game on the ground, 3.4 yards per carry. The opponent's 167 yards per game, 4.4 yards per carry. They are 9 touchdowns, 8 interceptions through the air, 137 yards per game. The opponent's 215 per game, 8 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. 263 yards per game for the offense, 4.1 yard per play. The opponent's 382 per game, 5.7 yards per play. They average 39 yards per punt. The opponent's 37. Bethune-Cookman is 30% on third down and 66% on fourth down. Again, like most of these teams that have bad records, they haven't been consistent moving the ball, especially on long drives. this defense is pretty solid. They only allow 33% on third downs. They're kind of like Valley in a lot of ways. Their defense actually is pretty good when you compare it to the offense, and the offense puts them in a lot of rough positions that they have to kind of stay on the field more than they would like. They allow 60% on fourth down. The offense has 12 fumbles to go with eight interceptions, giving them 20 turnovers. Defense has 9 interceptions and 8 fumbles, giving them 17 takeaways. They're -3 in the turnover margin. They have 22 sacks as a defense, which is pretty solid. They allow 32 sacks. Again, like most of these teams with younger offensive lines, they struggle to protect the quarterback. They are 20 or 24 in the red zone. The opponent's 28 or 38. They're led on the ground by Jimmy Robinson. He has 482 yards on the ground, 3.7 yards per carry, and 2 touchdowns. Walter Simmons, 263 on the ground, 4.2 yards per carry, and 4 touchdowns. He had a big 3 touchdown performance against Alabama A&M last week. Jaden Bivens, 129 yards on the ground. Mekhi Shaw, 128 yards on the ground and 1 touchdown. He averages 8 yards per carry. They had three runners go over 100 yards last week. So really, really solid effort on the ground last week against Alabama A&M. Luke Sprague is 62 of 95 passing, 544 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Walter Simmons, 55 of 104, 417 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Talik Bethel, 38 of 74, 369 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. When they go to the air, Tink Boyd usually is the main guy, along with Dakari Allen Johnson. Boyd has 26 catches for 303 yards and 2 touchdowns. Allen Johnson, 31 catches, 268 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And also Davino Ellington has 21 catches, 194 yards on the season. They're led defensively by De'Aris Thomas with 91 tackles. Eddie Walls has 13 tackles for loss. Thomas has 11 and a half. Also, Adrian Hall has 9.5. So their defense is actually pretty solid. They do a pretty good job of making plays and putting teams behind the chains. Walls has 4 sacks to lead the defense. Cunningham has 3.5. Hall has 3. Mari Hill Robinson has 4 interceptions. He's come on strong toward the end of the season. He's playing a lot better as the season has closed out. Anthony Frederick averages 40 yards per punt. Cade Hector is 77 of 11 on field goals with a long of 45. They have had 3 kicks blocked, 1 punt and 2 field goals. They've also blocked 3 kicks, 2 field goals and 1 punt. So they've been, a mixed bag in the special teams game. Allen Johnson averages 6.2 yards per punt return. Darnell Dees hasn't broken one, for a touchdown yet this season, but he's averaging 22 yards per return with a long of 61. Allen Johnson has 3 returns for 95 yards, giving him a 31-yard average with a long of 45. So the threat to return kicks is there for Bethune-Cookman. They just haven't broken one yet. Could this be the game for it? A rivalry game. Strange things always happen, so you never know. The Rattlers come in; they're 9-1 overall, 7-0 in conference, looking to wrap up an undefeated SWAC regular season and go to the championship game, which will be in Tallahassee. So, you don't want to get caught looking ahead in a game like this, which I doubt that happens because you're gonna get Bethune-Cookman's best shot in this game. But I think the Rattlers, you can see the finish line. You don't want to celebrate too much because you don't want to end the season with a loss. So I think it's imperative that they kind of stay focused and locked in, which I think they will because they've done a good job of that all season. They average 30 points per game. The defense only allows 15 per game. They average 132 yards on the ground, 4.3 yards per carry. They only allow 85 yards rushing on the season, 2.5 yards per carry. They have 18 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 241 yards per game passing, 184 yards per game for the opponents through the air, 14 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. Rattlers 374 yards of total offense per game, 5.9 yards per play. The opponents 269 per game, 4.2 yards per play. They average 41 yards per punt, 39 for the opponents, 40% on third down, and 58% on fourth down. This offense sometimes can stumble a little bit, but they're pretty consistent with moving the ball. They can put together drives, and they can definitely put together drives when they need them. The defense only allows 26% on third down, and 48% on fourth down. They make it tough for you to do anything really. So if you're gonna attack them, you kind of have to get up on them, and maybe you can kind of make them play from behind, which doesn't happen very often. They fumbled the ball 6 times to go with those 9 interceptions, giving them 15 turnovers. The opponents have thrown, like I said, they have thrown 9 interceptions as well to go with five fumbles, giving them 14 takeaways. They're -1 on the season. They have 33 sacks. Defense very good at getting to the quarterback, and they protect the quarterback well. They only have 14 sacks allowed on the season. They're 29 of 37 in the red zone. The opponent's 15 of 24. So you don't even really get in the red zone too often with this team. You have to take advantage of every opportunity that you have. The running game is led by Terrell Jennings. He has 430 yards on the season, 5 touchdowns, 5.7 yards per carry. Kelvin Dean, 5.2 yards per carry on the season, 328 yards and 3 touchdowns. Jaquez Yant, 304 yards on the season, 3.9 yards per carry and 5 touchdowns. That any one of those guys can make something happen in the run game. They don't run it a lot, but when they do, they can definitely make some things happen. They've been looking to lean on the run game a little bit more in recent weeks. Jeremy Musa, 168 yards, 168 completions, 296 attempts, 2,266 yards passing, 18 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Receiving, Marcus Riley, 27 catches, 438 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Jamari Shareed, 39 catches, 396 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Jamari Gassett, 22 catches, 292 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Nicholas Dixon, 16 catches, 285 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Kamari Young, 17 catches, 276 yards, and a touchdown. Jeremiah Pruitt, 11 catches, 176 yards, and 1 touchdown. And David Manigo, 10 catches, 142 yards on the season. So they have 7 guys with double-digit catches, and 6 of those 7 guys has touchdowns. They spread the ball around. Sometimes the passing game can be a bit erratic, but they always seem to get it together when they need to. Isaiah Major leads the defense with 84 tackles. Anthony Dunn has 11 tackles for loss. Major 10.5. Gentle Hunt 10. Dunn leads the defense with 8 sacks. Interceptions, all their interceptions are spread out amongst multiple guys. Special teams have been solid. Will Holt averages 43 yards per punt. They have had 1 punt blocked, but they have blocked the punt as well. Gillis is 9 of 11 on field goals with a longer 44. They have had 2 kicks blocked, so that's something to kind of look out for. The return game has been really, really good. Shareed averages 15 yards per return on punts with a longer 50. Also, Gassett averages 12 yards per return with a longer 39. Jenkins has a 24-yard punt return. Morgan has a 15-yard return. So they definitely are solid in the punt return game. Kickoff returns, Marcus Riley averages 30 yards per return with a 96-yard touchdown to his record. So they definitely can break one at any time and make it rough for you in any facet of that return game, whether they score or they get offense, good field position. So this game is a rivalry game. Like I said, I think FAMU will get Bethune-Cookman's best shot, but I think the Rattlers are gonna seal the deal and wrap up an undefeated regular season in the SWAC at 8-0. I think it's gonna be a little bit tighter than normal. Then some people think this will probably be another one of those FAMU type of games. I'm gonna say 27-10. It's gonna be a close first half because I think Bethune-Cookman gonna throw everything at them, but I think the Rattlers will do like they have done and pour on the points in the second half and get the victory. That leads us to our final game, which is our game of the week. Alabama State at Prairie View. That's a 2:00 kick on ESPN Plus. Not a lot on the line for Bama State in terms of stakes, but because they can't, because FAMU already has the East wrapped up. But they're 6-3. They win this game. They win next week. They finish 8-3, which is a very good season. 6-2 in conference. Solid second place finish. That's a lot better than anybody would have thought, especially the way that offense has played all season. Who knew that this offense could be carried to maybe 8 wins by this defense? Prairie View needs this game. They lose this game and Alcorn wins. Alcorn goes to the SWAC championship. They win this game and Alcorn loses. They go to the SWAC championship. So this is a big game. Just like last year, they're in the same position. Um, you don't want to come up short twice in a row. So this is do or die for the Panthers. Alabama State, like I said, offensively they average 19 points per game. The defense only gives up 15. They average 118 yards on the ground, 3.6 yards per carry. They only give up 87 on the ground, 2.9 yards per carry. They average 168 yards passing, 10 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 201 yards passing for the opponents, 9 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 287 yards of total offense for the Hornets, 5.1 yards per play. The defense allows 288 per game, 4.5 yards per play. They average 36 yards per punt. The opponents 36 as well. The Hornets are 30% on third down and 36% on fourth down. Driving the ball has been rough for this offense. They tend to score more on short fields, and they get some special teams and defensive touchdowns sprinkled in the mix. So they have really had a rough go of it offensively. Defense only allows 29% on third down, but they give up 75% on fourth down. So you can kind of hit them sometime if you get yourself to a fourth down, but more often than not, you're punting on fourth down. They have five fumbles to go with those 8 interceptions, giving them 13 turnovers. The defense has 11 fumble recoveries to go with their 8 interceptions, giving them 17 turnovers, making them a +4 on the season. They have 23 sacks. They've only allowed 9 sacks on the season. So the offensive line has done a good job of protecting the quarterback, even though the numbers aren't great. They're 21-30 in the red zone. The opponent's 16-22. They're led by Juwan Howell with 345 yards and 1 touchdown. He averages 4 yards per carry. Marcus Harris, 282 yards on the season, 3.8 yards per carry, 4 touchdowns. Demetrius Davis, 204 yards, 4.6, 3.5 yards per carry, and 1 touchdown. Damon Stewart leads the team with 90 completions, 145 attempts, 1,093 yards, 6 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Davis, 42 of 61, 413 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Everybody knows who they go to when they pass the ball, and that's Keyshawn Johnson. He is a first-team All-SWAC guy, 52 catches, 737 yards, and 7 touchdowns. The only other guy with double-digit catches and over 100 yards receiving is Isaiah Scott. He has 15 catches for 197 yards and 1 touchdown. Greg has 1 touchdown, and Gates has 1 touchdown. So Johnson is the end-all, be-all of their passing attack. You know where it's going, but nobody can stop it. Bubba Adams, 103 tackles to lead the defense. He also has 14 tackles for loss. Thomas has 10. Thomas leads the defense with 6 sacks. Adams with 4. Scarborough and Burgess each have 2 interceptions. The kicking game has been a mixed bag. They average 36 yards per punt. They're 7 of 14 on field goals. They've struggled and from distance. They're 1 of 4 from 30 to 39 yards and 0 of 3 from 40 to 49 yards. They have blocked 3 kicks as a defense, and they've scored on, I think, 1 of them. So they can get after the kicking game and make things happen in that aspect. Robert McMahon averages 13 yards per return with a 48-yard touchdown return. Eric Horn averages 19 yards per kick return with a longer 59. McMahon averages 19 yards per return as well with a longer 27. Gates has a 33-yard return. So they are pretty solid in the return game. And that's definitely something that you need when you have a team that doesn't really move the ball that well. Prairie View, like I said, is 6-5, 5-3 in conference. They need this win. They can't lose. Excuse me, that's the wrong. All right, I'm sorry. It still stands the same, but I'm looking at the wrong numbers. They're 5-5 right now, and 5-3 in 5-2 in conference. So they still can't lose. They need this win. If they lose this game, and like I said, Alcorn wins, then they're out. So they definitely need this win. They're averaging 19 points per game. They give up 32. They average 157 yards on the ground, which is down from last season. 145 for the opponents on the ground. They average 3.9 yards per carry. The opponents 4.4. They average 191 yards through the air, 8 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. 245 yards through the air for the opponents, 24 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. 348 yards of total offense for the Panthers, 5.5 yards per play. 390 for the opponent, 6.3 yards per play. They average 38 yards per punt, the opponent's 37. They convert 35% on third down and 28% on fourth down. So they've really struggled moving the ball consistently. That's been a theme in this preview. The defense gives up 37% on third down and 63% on fourth down. They have 5 fumbles to go with their 8 interceptions, giving them 13 turnovers. The opponents have 4 fumbles to go with 8 interceptions, giving them 12 turnovers. So they are -1. They have 15 sacks as a defense. They've given up 24. I thought this O-line would be a bigger strength on this team, but they've struggled protecting the quarterback. They're 19 of 27 in the red zone. Opponents 34 of 38. They have really struggled in the red zone getting stops. They're led by Amar Antoine with 475 yards and 2 touchdowns. Passing, Conley is 122 of 218, 8 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 1,863 yards. Samar Savage leads the team with 18 catches for 399 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's definitely a deep ball threat, averages 22 yards per catch. Spiller, 21 catches, 366 yards and 5 touchdowns. Jenkins, 19 for 353. Jaquan Bloomfield, 10 for 228 and 1 touchdown. Heron, 10 for 122. Defensively, Keyshawn Johnson leads them with 68 tackles. He also has 4.5 tackles for loss. Derek Ray has 9 tackles for loss to lead the defense. Marshall, 6.5. Sacks, Ray and Marshall each have 3. Interceptions, Lewis has 2 to lead the defense. The kicking game, Jasso averages 39 yards per punt. They have had 1 punt blocked, and they have blocked 1 punt. Villa Gomez is their primary kicker, but they are 11 of 18 on the season with a long of 50. They're pretty good from 40 plus. They're 4 of 6 from 40 plus. That's including that 50-yard field goal. So they do have the leg to get some field goals there. The return game, Brian Jenkins has been really solid in the kickoff return game. He averages 27 yards per return with a long of 60. He averages 3 yards per punt return with a long of 12. This game can go a multitude of ways. This is one of those games that I can see either team winning, but Bama State has been playing really, really good, and it's so tough to move the ball on them. They got a way of making games ugly, and I think they continue that this week. I want, I would love to see Prairie win this game and kind of wrap up the West, but I think that Bama State, I think they're going to throw a monkey wrench in this. I think I have Bama State finishing with 8-3 record. So, of course, I think they're going to win this game, but it's going to be ugly. It's going to be tight. I say 20-19. I say a 1-point game. I think the Hornets are going to probably get a special teams touchdown and maybe a defensive touchdown. Offense going to do just enough, and they'll find a way to pick up that win. Taking a quick look at the Week 13 games, there's only 2 games on the schedule. The Turkey Day Classic is on Thanksgiving, Thursday, November 23rd, 2 p.m. kick, ESPN Plus. Tuskegee and Bama State, always a big game. And then the Bayou Classic, Southern and Grambling on November 25th, Saturday, NBC, 1 o'clock kick. This game could have an impact on the West if both teams lose this week. Alcorn and Prairie View, they both lose. Then Grambling has an outside shot. So don't count out the Bayou Classic. Deciding the West Division, which I kind of thought it would at some point. So we'll see. But that's going to do it for today's show, man. I thank y'all for rocking with us, and we'll catch y'all on the rebound. Peace.